Have you ever wondered why over 500 cultures worldwide, from China to Peru, from Australia to Scandinavia, tell remarkably similar stories about a catastrophic flood that destroyed civilization? What if they're all remembering the same event? Before we dive into this fascinating investigation, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, I promise you'll discover something that challenges your perspective today. Let's explore the evidence together. Today, we're examining one of humanity's most persistent mysteries, the universal flood. We'll explore 6 major categories of evidence that scientists and researchers have discovered. From marine fossils found 29,000 feet above sea level on Mount Everest, to massive fossil graveyards containing billions of creatures, to sedimentary layers stretching across entire continents. We'll compare ancient flood narratives from cultures that never contacted each other, examine geological formations that perplex mainstream scientists, and investigate recent archaeological discoveries that have made international headlines. By the end, you'll have the information to form your own conclusions about whether a global flood actually occurred. The universal testimony of ancient cultures. Let's begin with something truly remarkable. According to evolutionary geologist Robert Shaw, Noah's story is just one account in a worldwide collection of at least 500 flood myths, making them the most widespread of all ancient myths. Anthropologist and researcher Dr. James Perloff documented that in 95% of over 200 flood legends, the flood was worldwide. In 88%, a specific family was favored. In 70%, survival was by means of a boat. In 67%, animals were also saved. Think about that for a moment. Cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, with no contact whatsoever, telling essentially the same story. The oldest recorded account outside the Bible comes from ancient Mesopotamia, specifically the Epic of Gilgamesh, dating back to around 2100 BCE. In this epic, a character named Utnapishtim is warned by the gods about an impending flood that would destroy humanity. He's instructed to build a massive vessel, bring aboard his family and representatives of all animal species, and seal it with pitch. The parallels to the biblical account are striking. Both describe a worldwide flood. Both feature a righteous man chosen to survive. Both include animals saved in a vessel. And both end with the survivors landing on a mountain. But the Mesopotamian account isn't unique. In ancient China, the 4,120-volume collection of ancient knowledge describes how the earth was shaken to its foundations. The sky sank lower towards the north. The sun, moon, and stars changed their motions. The earth fell to pieces, and the waters in its bosom rushed upwards with violence and overflowed the earth. Chinese folklore from the Banars tribe tells of rivers that swelled till the waters reached the sky, and all living beings perished except 2, a brother and a sister, who were saved in a huge chest. They took with them into the chest a pair of every sort of animal. Travel to the Americas, where indigenous peoples who had absolutely no contact with the Old World maintained their own flood traditions. The Choctaw tribe tells of a prophet who built a raft from sassafras logs after the Great Spirit warned him of coming destruction. The Incas of Peru preserved stories stating, "The water rose above the highest mountains in the world, so that all people and all created things perished." In Mayan sacred texts, the Popol Vuh describes multiple attempts by the creators to fashion human beings with wooden people being destroyed by the gods through a great flood, because they had no souls and didn't acknowledge their makers. Even in Australia, Aboriginal stories describe how there was a flood that covered the mountains so that many of the spirit men and women were drowned. When the waters receded and the mountains appeared again and the sea went back into its own place, the son and daughter of Punjil, went back to Earth and became the first of the true men and women who live in the world today. From Scandinavia, the Teutonic tribes preserved vivid tales where the aged ash tree Yggdrasil was shaken from its roots to its topmost branches. Mountains crumbled or split from top to bottom. Men were driven from their hearths, and the human race was swept from the surface of the earth. All the rivers, all the seas rose and overflowed. The earth sank beneath the sea. The question we must ask is this: how do we explain this remarkable consistency across cultures that never interacted? Skeptics suggest that all ancient civilizations lived near rivers and naturally developed flood myths from local disasters. But can local flooding really explain why 95% describe a worldwide event? Why do 70% specifically mention survival by boat? Why do 57% mention survivors landing on a mountain? Marine fossils in the mountains. Now let's examine physical evidence that has puzzled scientists for centuries. At the summit of Mount Everest, the world's highest point at 29,029 feet above sea level, climbers and geologists have discovered something extraordinary: marine fossils. These aren't just a few scattered shells. We're talking about trilobites, brachiopods, crinoids related to starfish, extinct eel-like creatures called conodonts, and tiny crustaceans called ostracods. Edmund Hillary himself collected limestone samples from near Everest's summit when he and Tenzing Norgay became the first to scale the peak in 1953. Earlier, in 1924, geologist Noel Ewart Odell collected limestone samples during the ill-fated Mallory and Irvine expedition. Limestone is a sedimentary rock that typically forms in warm, shallow waters from shell, coral, and other organic debris accumulating on ocean floors. But Mount Everest isn't unique. Across the Himalayas, from Tibet to Nepal, marine fossils are embedded in rocks standing miles above sea level. The same phenomenon occurs in the Andes Mountains of South America, in the Rocky Mountains of North America, and across mountain ranges worldwide. Scientists have documented marine fossils in the Alps, the Appalachians, and even in the interior of Australia. According to recent research published in 2025, ocean fossils are found throughout Southeast Asian mountains, from Langkawi in Malaysia to the uplands of Brunei and Sumatra in Indonesia. The mainstream scientific explanation attributes this to plate tectonics, the theory that Earth's crustal plates move, collide, and push ancient ocean floors upward over millions of years. According to this view, the rocks containing these fossils were formed 400 to 500 million years ago, when these regions lay beneath warm, shallow seas. When the Indian plate crashed into the Eurasian plate, it pushed the seafloor upward, eventually forming the Himalayas. However, flood geology proponents offer an alternative interpretation. They suggest these marine fossils at extreme elevations are exactly what we'd expect from a global flood. During a worldwide deluge, ocean waters would have surged over the continents, depositing marine creatures across vast areas. As the floodwaters receded, catastrophic geological activity could have rapidly uplifted certain regions, leaving marine fossils stranded at high elevations. The debate centers on timing and process. Can slow, gradual uplift over millions of years explain the pristine preservation of delicate fossils? Or does rapid burial and uplift provide a better explanation? Dr. Solomon Buckman from the University of Wollongong notes that Everest fossils are Ordovician in age, about 420 million years old according to conventional dating, and formed under the ocean on the northern margin of India when it was still attached to Western Australia as part of the supercontinent Gondwana. But here's where it gets interesting. If we examine the Grand Canyon, we find layers of sedimentary rock containing marine fossils more than a mile above current sea level. These layers, the Redwall limestone, the Mauve limestone, and others, contain abundant sea creature remains: brachiopods, corals, crinoids, and trilobites. The Redwall limestone alone contains a fossil graveyard with billions of straight-shelled nautiloids that stretches for 180 miles across northern Arizona and into southern Nevada, covering at least 10,500 square miles. The presence of marine fossils on mountains is undisputed. What remains disputed is the mechanism and timeline. Did plate tectonics gradually push ancient seafloors skyward over hundreds of millions of years? Or did catastrophic floodwaters temporarily cover even the highest pre-flood mountains, depositing marine creatures before rapid geological upheaval raised some regions to their current heights? The evidence exists for everyone to see. The interpretation depends on one's starting assumptions about Earth's history. Massive fossil graveyards. Let's move to another category of evidence that demands explanation. Massive fossil graveyards found across every continent. These aren't isolated fossils scattered here and there. We're talking about billions of creatures buried together in concentrated deposits, often showing signs of violent death and rapid burial. Consider the Redwall limestone in the Grand Canyon, which we mentioned earlier. Within this formation lies a 7-foot-thick layer containing billions of nautiloid fossils, straight-shelled, chambered marine creatures similar to modern squid. These fossils are all different sizes, from small juveniles to large adults, and they're all jumbled together. This fossil graveyard required approximately 24 cubic miles of lime sand and silt to bury an estimated 1 billion nautiloids. The deposit stretches continuously for at least 180 miles. To form such a massive graveyard, catastrophic conditions would be necessary. Mainstream geologists acknowledge this required rapid burial, but attribute it to local turbidity currents, underwater landslides that can transport vast amounts of sediment. Flood geologists argue this is precisely what we'd expect from a global deluge. Massive underwater currents transporting and burying enormous numbers of creatures across continental scales. The Karoo supergroup in South Africa presents another staggering example. This formation contains an estimated 800 billion fossils, predominantly of a mammal-like reptile. How do 800 billion creatures end up buried together? The conventional explanation involves multiple local catastrophes over millions of years. The flood geology interpretation suggests a single worldwide catastrophe buried countless creatures rapidly. In 2010, paleontologists announced what may be the world's largest dinosaur graveyard in Alberta, Canada. This mega bonebed, spans at least 568 acres and contains thousands of bones from the plant-eating dinosaur Centrosaurus. Lead researcher David Eberth from the Royal Tyrrell Museum described evidence suggesting these dinosaurs, possibly numbering in the high hundreds to low thousands, died in a mass drowning event. Their bones show no signs of weathering, indicating rapid burial. The researchers proposed that a catastrophic hurricane-like storm caused sudden flooding that killed and buried the entire herd. A 2019 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences described a fossil site in North Dakota called Tanis. Researchers discovered what they call a tangled mass of freshwater fish, terrestrial vertebrates, trees, branches, logs, marine ammonites, and other marine creatures. According to lead author Robert De Palma, this represents organisms killed and buried by a massive surge triggered by an asteroid impact 66 million years ago. The mixing of freshwater and marine creatures, along with land animals and plants, indicates catastrophic burial by water. Around the world, similar fossil graveyards have been documented. In Wyoming's Green River Formation, billions of fish fossils are preserved in layers spanning thousands of square miles. In Germany's Holzmaden shale deposits, thousands of ichthyosaurs, marine reptiles, are found with soft tissue preserved, indicating extremely rapid burial. In China's Liaoning province, countless birds, dinosaurs, and mammals are found preserved together, many with delicate features like feathers and fur still visible. The question becomes, what process best explains these massive graveyards? Local catastrophes repeated countless times over millions of years, or a single global catastrophe that buried organisms across continents simultaneously. Geologist Derek Ager, though not a believer in flood geology, observed about polystrate fossils that sedimentation was at times very rapid indeed, even though such rapid rates contradicted the millions of years his profession attributed to rock layers. Whether these fossil graveyards resulted from one global event or many local catastrophes remains debated. But one thing is certain: they record death and burial on a massive scale. If you're finding this information compelling, take a moment to leave a comment below. Tell me, are you more convinced by the mainstream interpretation or the flood geology perspective? What questions do you still have? Your engagement helps this video reach more people who are genuinely curious about these topics. Also, I want to be clear about something. My goal isn't to tell you what to believe. My goal is to present evidence that is often overlooked in mainstream discussions and let you evaluate it for yourself. Some of this evidence comes from peer-reviewed scientific journals, some from geological surveys, and some from archaeological discoveries that have made international news. Whether you end up agreeing with the flood interpretation or not, you'll have a fuller picture of the evidence. Now, let's continue with even more intriguing discoveries. Continental-scale sedimentary layers. Now we examine evidence that spans not just mountains or local fossil sites, but entire continents. Geologists have documented that certain sedimentary rock layers can be traced continuously across thousands of miles, even between continents. This presents a significant challenge to the conventional view that rock layers accumulated slowly over millions of years through local depositional environments. The American Association of Petroleum Geologists conducted a comprehensive project documenting what are called mega-sequences, thick packages of sedimentary rock layers bounded by erosion surfaces that can be traced across the entire North American continent. 6 major mega-sequences were identified, each representing enormous depositional events. The Tapeats sandstone, visible in the Grand Canyon, can be traced across the entire United States, into Canada, and across the Atlantic Ocean to England. The Redwall limestone follows similar continental-scale patterns. Even more remarkable, the chalk beds of England, the famous White Cliffs of Dover, can be traced across Europe into the Middle East, and are also found in the American Midwest and Western Australia. We're talking about the same distinctive rock layer appearing on multiple continents. How does a rock layer form across such vast distances? The conventional explanation involves similar depositional environments occurring in different locations over the same general time period, slowly accumulating sediments that happen to have similar characteristics. But flood geologists point out that this requires an extraordinary series of coincidences. Similar conditions, similar source material, similar depositional rates, all occurring simultaneously across thousands of miles. Consider what researchers have found in the Grand Canyon alone. The Tonto Group, comprising the Tapeats sandstone, Bright Angel shale, and Muav limestone, shows characteristics of rapid, large-scale deposition. These formations contain features called hummocky cross-stratification, which forms only under high-energy water conditions. The boundaries between many layers show no evidence of the erosion you'd expect if millions of years elapsed between depositions. Dr. John Whitmore documented that many sandstone layers in the Grand Canyon contain massive crossbeds, inclined layers within the main horizontal layers that extend for dozens of miles. These crossbeds indicate that massive quantities of sand were transported by powerful water currents and deposited quickly. According to flood geology calculations, if the conventional time frame is applied to these deposits, they would require sedimentation rates far exceeding anything observed in modern environments, except during catastrophes. Another puzzling feature: many sedimentary layers show evidence of soft sediment deformation. This means the layers were bent and folded while still soft before they hardened into rock. In the Grand Canyon, the Tapeats sandstone and overlying formations were folded at a nearly 90-degree angle in some locations, yet show no fracturing. If these layers had hardened over millions of years before being bent, they would have shattered. Their ability to bend without breaking indicates they were still soft when the folding occurred. The Coconino sandstone in the Grand Canyon presents its own mysteries. This formation, up to 300 feet thick and covering 200,000 square kilometers, contains billions of fossilized trackways. Conventional geology interprets these as desert sand dune deposits, but researchers have noted problems with this interpretation. The cross beds are too steep and too uniform for wind-deposited dunes. The trackways show features more consistent with underwater formation than desert sand. The scale of the deposit, 10,000 cubic miles of sand, requires an enormous source and transportation mechanism. Whether these continental-scale layers resulted from a global flood or from conventional processes repeated across millions of years remains hotly debated. What cannot be debated is their existence and their remarkable extent. Something deposited sediments across entire continents, preserved them as rock, and left them for us to discover and interpret. The Epic of Gilgamesh and Ancient Flood accounts. One of the most fascinating aspects of flood research involves comparing the biblical account with other ancient texts, particularly the Epic of Gilgamesh. Skeptics have long claimed that the Genesis flood narrative was simply borrowed from earlier Mesopotamian myths. But does this claim hold up under scrutiny? The Epic of Gilgamesh exists on 12 tablets, dating to approximately 650 BC, though scholars believe the stories themselves date back to 1800–1600 BC. The 11th tablet contains the flood narrative. In it, a character named Utnapishtim recounts how the gods decided to destroy humanity with a flood. The god Ea warned Utnapishtim in a dream, telling him, "O man of Shuruppak, son of Ubartutu, tear down thy house, build a ship, abandon wealth, seek after life, scorn possessions, save thy life. Bring up the seed of all kinds of living things into the ship which thou shalt build." The similarities to the Genesis account are undeniable. Both describe a global flood. Both feature a righteous man chosen to survive. Both involve building a large vessel. Both include saving animals. Both end with the vessel landing on a mountain. Both describe the survivors sending out birds to find dry land. Both conclude with a sacrifice and a divine promise. However, the differences are equally significant and often overlooked. The Gilgamesh Ark was a massive cube, about 200 feet on each side with 6 decks. Naval architects point out that a cube-shaped vessel would be extremely unstable, tumbling in rough waters and killing or injuring its passengers. The biblical ark, by contrast, had a 7-to-1 length-to-width ratio, similar to modern ocean-going barges, making it highly stable. The duration differs dramatically. The Gilgamesh flood lasted merely 6 days and nights. The biblical flood lasted over a year, 371 days from when Noah entered the ark until he departed. Which time frame makes more sense for a global catastrophe? The motivations differ too. In Gilgamesh, squabbling gods send the flood, with one god warning Utnapishtim behind the others' backs. After the flood, the gods are described as gathering like flies around the sacrifice, apparently starving because humans weren't available to feed them offerings. The biblical account presents one sovereign God acting in just judgment while showing mercy to a righteous family. The construction timeline differs significantly. Utnapishtim supposedly built his massive cubic vessel in just 7 days, with help from his community and craftsmen. The biblical account indicates Noah likely had between 55 and 75 years to construct the ark, a far more realistic time frame. Genesis 6:9 through 9:17 provides specific chronological details. Noah was 600 years old when the flood began. On the 17th day of the second month, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Rain fell for 40 days and nights. Waters prevailed for 150 days. The ark rested on Ararat's mountains on the 17th day of the 7th month. By the 27th day of the second month of Noah's 601st year, the earth was completely dry. So which account came first? Interestingly, many scholars now believe both the Gilgamesh epic and Genesis drew from an even earlier source, possibly the Atrahasis epic, or, as flood geology proponents argue, from actual historical events remembered by survivors and their descendants. As humanity dispersed after the flood and the Tower of Babel event, described in Genesis 11, different groups carried memories of the same event, which evolved into various cultural versions over time. This would explain both the remarkable similarities and the significant differences. The Genesis account, preserved within the Hebrew tradition, maintained the most accurate version, while other cultures' accounts became mixed with local mythology and cultural elements. Recent archaeological discoveries. Let's turn to some fascinating recent discoveries that have reignited the flood debate. In March 2025, international headlines reported new findings at the Durupanar Formation in Turkey, a boat-shaped geological feature located about 20 miles south of Mount Ararat's peak. Since its discovery in 1948, this formation has intrigued researchers because of its unusual shape and dimensions that align remarkably well with biblical descriptions. According to the Jerusalem Post, an international team of scientists has been studying this site since 2021. Their recent findings revealed that the formation, which spans 538 feet in length and consists primarily of limonite, an iron ore, was likely submerged underwater during a catastrophic flood approximately 5,000 years ago. Professor Faruk Kaya, a leading researcher on the project, stated, "Initial findings suggest there were human activities in this area since the Chalcolithic era. Our investigations indicate that this area sustained life during that era and was at some point submerged. Soil samples from the site contain clay-like substances, marine deposits, and remnants of seafood dated to the period when biblical floods are believed to have occurred, between 3,500 and 5,000 years ago." The research team asserted, "The evidence implies that the story could have a foundation in reality. However, it's crucial to note that this remains controversial. Other geologists argue the formation is natural, and definitive proof of an ancient vessel has not been established. The site continues to be studied, with proponents believing it could be the petrified remains of Noah's Ark, and skeptics maintaining it simply an interesting geological formation. Another recent development involves the Black Sea deluge hypothesis. In the late 1990s, marine geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman proposed that approximately 7,600 years ago, rising Mediterranean waters catastrophically breached a land barrier at the Bosporus Strait, flooding what was then a freshwater lake and creating today's Black Sea. They suggested this event occurred with the force of 200 Niagara Falls and may have inspired the Noah story and other flood myths. Core samples from the Black Sea floor showed evidence of a freshwater to saltwater transition, along with what appeared to be ancient shorelines now submerged. Underwater archaeological surveys discovered what may be preserved settlements beneath the Black Sea, suggesting people once lived in areas now under hundreds of feet of water. However, this hypothesis has faced significant challenges. Later studies questioned whether the flooding was truly catastrophic or more gradual. Some researchers found evidence that water may have flowed southward out of the Black Sea rather than northward into it. The debate continues, but here's what's significant. Even mainstream scientists acknowledge that major flooding events occurred in the ancient world at a time when human civilizations existed. Whether these were local catastrophes that inspired regional myths or whether they were remnants of a truly global event remains disputed. In 2024, a study in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences examined absolute dating methods related to biblical archaeology in Jerusalem, demonstrating that modern dating techniques can now provide unprecedented precision. This opens new possibilities for testing claims about ancient events, including the flood. Additionally, geomagnetic field data published in 2022 allowed researchers to reconstruct biblical military campaigns with new accuracy. These methods, applied to flood geology, might eventually provide clearer timelines for when major geological and archaeological events occurred. What's undeniable is that the flood question refuses to disappear. Each decade brings new discoveries, new dating methods, and new evidence that keeps both skeptics and believers actively researching and debating. Conclusion. So where does all this evidence lead us? Here's what we can say with confidence. First, over 500 distinct cultures worldwide preserve flood traditions with remarkable similarities, far more than can be easily dismissed as coincidence or parallel development from local river flooding. Second, marine fossils exist at extreme elevations on every continent, requiring some mechanism to explain how ocean creatures ended up miles above sea level, whether gradual plate tectonics or catastrophic floodwaters. Third, massive fossil graveyards containing billions of organisms show evidence of rapid, violent burial on scales that demand extraordinary explanations, whether repeated local catastrophes or one global event. Fourth, sedimentary rock layers stretch continuously across continents and between continents, indicating depositional processes operating on enormous scales. Fifth, ancient texts from multiple cultures describe a global flood with specific details about survivors, vessels, animals, and mountains, details too consistent to completely ignore. Sixth, recent archaeological and geological discoveries continue to uncover evidence of major ancient flooding events that affected human populations, though whether these were local or global remains contested. The honest truth is this: both interpretations, conventional geology and flood geology, require accepting some challenging premises. Conventional geology requires accepting extremely slow processes, producing results that sometimes look catastrophic, along with dating methods based on unprovable assumptions. Flood geology requires accepting a global catastrophe of proportions unprecedented in recorded history, along with extremely rapid geological processes. Neither view has absolute proof that silences all objections. Both sides have credentialed scientists, both cite peer-reviewed research, and both can point to evidence supporting their position. The question isn't whether evidence exists. It does, abundantly. The question is, which interpretive framework best explains all the evidence coherently? Now, I want to hear from you. After examining this evidence, where do you stand? Drop a comment and let me know. Do you think the continental-scale sedimentary layers are better explained by millions of years of slow deposition or by a catastrophic flood? Do the 500-plus flood legends worldwide represent cultural memory of an actual event or independent development from local disasters? Does the evidence of rapid burial in fossil graveyards convince you of catastrophic processes? What questions do you still have that I didn't address today? Remember, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to present evidence that often gets overlooked in mainstream discussions. Some of you will leave this video more convinced than ever that conventional geology is correct. And that's fine. You've examined the alternative and made an informed decision. Others will find the flood geology interpretation more compelling. And that's fine too. You've seen evidence that many people never encounter. The important thing is that we engage with evidence honestly, wherever it leads. Science advances not by ignoring challenging evidence, but by confronting it directly. The greatest scientific revolutions occurred when someone dared to question prevailing assumptions and follow the evidence to unexpected conclusions. If you found this video valuable, here's how you can help. First, subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss future videos where we tackle other controversial topics with the same evidence-based approach. Second, share this video with someone who enjoys these kinds of deep dive investigations. Third, check out my other videos. I have several on related biblical archaeology and geological topics that you will find equally fascinating. I also want to recommend some resources for further research. I'm not going to tell you what books to read or what conclusions to reach, but I will say this: read both perspectives. Read what mainstream geologists say about Grand Canyon formation. Read what flood geologists say. Read the Epic of Gilgamesh yourself. Read Genesis 6:9 carefully. Examine photographs of the sedimentary layers. Look at fossil graveyards. Study the evidence firsthand, rather than just accepting what you're told by any authority, including me. In next week's video, we're examining another fascinating topic: archaeological evidence for the Tower of Babel and the origin of languages. What do linguistics, archaeology, and ancient texts reveal? You won't want to miss it. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeking truth wherever the evidence leads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.